Ever wondered how the world you live in, with governments running on laws, bureaucrats, taxes, and census systems came to be? If I told you this system existed when Europe was tribal and Africa's empires were rising, would you believe it? In the East, an empire emerged that governed with order, law, and knowledge. This isn't fiction, it's history. Welcome to the Han Dynasty. We're not here to prove who's behind. We're here to show how the world learned from each other. And perhaps there's still much to learn. History shows power, knowledge, and order shift from one place to another. On China's land, an era unfolded where power, culture, and progress opened a new chapter. The Han Dynasty, lasting from 206 BC to 220 AD, united China and set the world on a new path. But this progress wasn't easy. It was a journey of rebellions, reforms, and great leaders' struggles. Let's dive into the story that forever changed China and the world. The Han didn't emerge overnight. It rose when China was internally fractured and local governments were becoming autonomous. China was once powerful, but over time it became just a name on the map. Before the Han, China had governance, but it was harsh. The law ruled humans, not the other way around. Minor mistakes led to severe punishments. Heavy taxes and fear ruled. The state seemed strong but was hollow inside. China was fragmented, provinces self-governed, and local warlords didn't recognize the center. Loyalty was to power, not law. The center issued orders, but on the ground, there was no guarantee they'd be followed. It wasn't a state, it was just a name. The problem wasn't external enemies, it was the system. No clear administration, no consistent policy. Rulers changed, laws changed. People felt the state wasn't listening. When a state stops listening, rebellion is inevitable. China saw rebellions, but they weren't just against the throne. They were against injustice, harsh laws, and a system ignoring humans. The state responded with force, but force didn't solve the problem. China faced a choice: more rigidity or a new path. It needed a new idea, not a new conqueror. A system turning power into law, fear into order, and bringing the state closer to people. That's when the Han Dynasty emerged, not as a reaction but as a reform. Liu Bang, aka Emperor Gaozu, founded the Han. A commoner, a farmer's son, who united China with hard work and wisdom. The Han leadership decided to reconnect the state with its people. They dropped the old system's harshness and adopted balance. Law would serve humans, power wouldn't be brutal, and order would have flexibility. This became the Han's foundation. The Han redefined power. Before, power equals fear, rule equals punishment. Now, power equals order, rule equals law. The state learned inclusion was key. At the Han's start, the state was reorganized. Provinces got clear boundaries, governors had defined roles, and center-province links strengthened. For the first time, China worked like a machine, quietly but effectively. When the state eased up and prioritized justice, people's response changed. Rebellions dropped, trade breathed, and farmers saw the state as a partner, not an enemy. That's when the Han truly established itself. The Han wasn't built by swords, but by learning from failures, people's exhaustion, and the need for a better state. That's why it lasted and became a model. The Han's strength was its bureaucracy, officials chosen by merit, not birth. Knowledge was foundational. Education, written records, census, taxes, all to keep the state informed. It was the first time governance tried to understand its people. The Han connected China to the world via the Silk Road, trade, Ideas, tech. China wasn't isolated. Europe, Central Asia, Africa, all felt the Han's influence indirectly. This was globalization. The Han's golden age, a strong economy, stable state, relatively happy people. It didn't boast but stood strong. The world saw power lies not just in conquest but in stability. Why was Europe lagging? 1. Political fragmentation and tribes, no unified government. 2. No bureaucracy or education like the Han's merit-based system. 3. Limited economy and trade, local, not global like the Silk Road. 4. Limited access to knowledge and tech. 5. Cultural and religious differences fragmented Europe, unlike the Han's Confucian-driven order. TLDR. Europe lagged due to lack of unity, education, bureaucracy, economy, and social order. The Han set a progress model. Europe caught on later. The Han didn't collapse overnight. Power crumbled from within. The system became a burden. Laws got complex, decisions slowed, and inflexibility weakened it. Emperors weakened, courtiers ruled. People lost trust. Farmers rebelled. The military went rogue. The economy tanked. The order, law, and ethics that defined the empire became a memory. No single enemy brought it down. It was misuse of power, systemic rigidity, disconnect from people, and refusal to adapt. A great empire silently crumbled, but its lesson lives on. China today, builds on Han principles and culture. Though the empire fell, its legacy in bureaucracy, planning, and social order remains core to China's identity. Modern states follow this model. This story teaches, power is built with order, knowledge, and justice, not religion or war. Is the West still learning? Yes, but differently. Before, it learned openly. Now it absorbs and rebrands. The question isn't if the West's learning. It's if the rest recognize their history or relearn lessons under someone else's name. History isn't old. We just forget it. Subscribe to Old Moment, Gold History. Don't just hear history, understand it. Because if you don't know your history, you're just a character in someone else's story,